Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is John with Tommy's Top Picks here to bring you your weekly flesh and blood market update. This one will be as quick as I can do it because I have a very busy work day. I'm doing this before my work day and I just got to get moving. It's our quarterly internal pitch session, so I got some work to do and I got to get into the office, which is something I don't often have to do, but I do today. All right, so let's jump in. First up, WTR Unlimited boxes down 4.55% to 66 from 69. Nothing crazy here. This was a month ago. We were at the same price. We're just range bound here. There's nothing special going on. I just thought I'd point it out. It got its honorable mention at a 4% plus, so I figured I'd point it out. Unlimited boxes of Monarch up 7.27% to 55 from 51. We were just here and it was a 5% drop when we were here 2 weeks ago. So again, nothing crazy here. It's just kind of a downward range bound movement. 59, 55, 51, bouncing back to 55. I expect another bounce back down next week and a continual downtrend, assuming that we don't see anything special with Angels or Prism happening. If something happens in one of these, it's the Road to Nationals, I think, season that's happening. If something happens in that, she shows better than expected results somewhere, some deck tech, then of course that will change. But without that, which I don't foresee happening based on what I'm hearing, without that, I don't see that jumping back up. I imagine we're going to be on a slow glide path down from here on Monarch, which is, expected and fine. Crew Unlimited cases down 7.26% to 248 from 266. This is a low. It's a pretty serious low. So if you ever did want Crew Unlimited, it might be getting to the point where this is a good time to grab it. I would definitely say do not bet the farm on it. Crew has probably been eclipsed completely by, mostly, not completely, by Everfest and Dynasty at this point, so I don't know if these will recover until they become just collectible items as a sealed product, which I'm not sure when or if that ever happens, just because the general consensus is due to power creep and things of that nature. The general trend over the long haul is down. As the heroes that relied on these cards kind of LL out and various things happen where the cards in here are no longer as useful or valuable, the EV just drops. That's just math, right? And so over time, until they're just incredibly scarce, which I don't see that happening anytime too soon, they'll just continue to decline, and then we'll start to see that uptick. It's a long-term Nike check that I like to see in sealed boxes. It just takes a lot longer because of print runs and demand and the structure of the game and the player base versus collector base, etc. All right, moving on to Everfest. First edition down 7.41% to 54 from 58. This is range bound again. We've seen this area. We were down at 52 a month ago, so this is actually up from there. We'll take a look at this chart. I do want to keep an eye on Everfest. It seems to be the most interesting chart with the most interesting things happening, and we did get the no unlimited announcement, meaning it is one of the rarer types of boxes out there if you combine unlimited and first edition together. Of the other sets, Everfest I think is the third most rare. I think that's right. Point being, it is rare. It is very opened because people like the cards, and it's still, to this day, it's still a powerhouse of the box. So overall, I do expect to see a volatile market and then an upward movement on this, just because supply and demand is going to be a factor. Now, if they come out with something like History Pack 3, that will cool this off if it does start going up. Now, granted, it doesn't need to happen, or I guess it's History Pack 2, right? Yeah, in America. So that doesn't need to happen at this point, obviously. The box prices are too low as it is, so I don't think there's any big rush for that. But I could see this one being one of the first to move up after this, ARC and WTR original movement that we saw up to 100 a box. I think Everfest is probably next, slated for the next move. All right, moving on. Outsiders up 14.86% to 74 from 63. It was here 2 weeks ago. It does feel like we're knocking on a door. We talked about this last week, and we wanted to keep an eye on this. I'll look at this chart too. The fact that it's at the same high as before isn't that compelling yet. But let's look at the chart and see if we can derive any sort of like upward motion in general, or downward motion, or maybe just a flat range bound, which is possible. Dusk Till Dawn up 10% to 80 from 72. It was 81 2 weeks ago, 80 the week before, and that was a spike. So again, another one knocking at the door. Let's take a look at Everfest Outsiders and Dusk Till Dawn charts and see what they say. Now, on to some weird stuff. First and foremost, WTR and ARK are listed again. This is first edition cases. They are back up there at absurd prices. Do not buy them at this price, and I'll show you why. Right here, Card Shop Live is selling for $6,000. They still have them in stock for a case of first edition ARK. Yeah. So yeah, that exists. So I wouldn't go paying this price, right? That's a factor. Oh, and something I did want to mention, because we were talking about ARK climbing and being interesting last week on these unlimited boxes. They are available in Canada for 61 USD apparently per box. I don't know where that link is, but we got a comment last week, and I thought that was worth pointing out. So if you are looking for those older products, it may be worth it to check eBay Canada, things like that, to see if you can grab it for a discount. I've ordered stuff from Canada before. There's no headaches with that. We have a open trade border or whatever, so you don't get customs or anything special. There might be a little bit extra shipping, but it's totally reasonable. Like $61 versus 94. Even with a little extra shipping, you're going to make out better than if you just buy straight from TCG, pay taxes and shipping on that, although this does include the shipping. But you get my point, right? So anyways, yeah, so ARK first edition available Card Shop Live for, what was it, $6K? I don't see that going away anytime soon. When that does go away, then these prices may be more reasonable. I think they might have had WTR first on there as well, but I think the price was crazy like this. It was similar. It was pretty high, whatever it was. So I didn't even take too much note of it. So anyways, moving on. Crew first edition cases up 8.17%. Excuse me, I'm about to cough. Sorry about that. Still recovering. 8.17% to 2,400 from 2,200. We have been stuck at this 2,200 for a long time. I don't know if this just got pulled or if it's sold. It's one of those things where they don't show the chart, they don't show the sale history because it's so few of them. But it did move back up to this place where we were, what was it, in January. Sorry, January here. Yeah, January 4th. So that's where we are with this. Does Crew first edition cases slowly run out? I mean, if anything, I think these would be the first thing to disappear if we're talking about Crew running out of supply. And then the boxes would be next, right? And then the unlimited would be the thing that trends. So I'd see the unlimited trending down for a while until these show sign of disappearing. Sorry, these first edition cases, then boxes, then go into unlimited is how I'd expect it. Again, that's going to be a slow drag because there's not a whole lot of reasons to open up. I would say that these have the highest reason because the cold foils are valuable. Therefore EV, therefore, it makes sense, right? Moving on, Everfest down 7.92% to 240 from 259. This is pretty unusual. I mean, we were down here, what was this, January 18th, so it was a while ago. We haven't had any real movement on Everfest cases for a while, and the fact that it's down means this may be a very temporary discount because we all know this product is well liked, but at the case level, the shop level, maybe it's not the sort of thing people are moving very well, so, and they don't want to crack the boxes and do all that whole thing, so might be worth checking that out. If you're looking to get some discounted boxes, I think we'll probably get a decent discount on that, and you do have to be aware that it's going to be a while before you see any large gains on things like this, but I do think it's coming with Everfest. Cool. I did want to talk really briefly about some patterns and history to back up my belief about the collectability of these art pieces. Let's see, there was a couple things I wanted to point out, and I want to see if I can find them. So let's see, codex of, well, all the codexes are low, right? But even the things that are still like high demand, it's worth noting that they are not selling very well. Where did the Codex of Frailty go? I must have switched the page. Okay, I'm very good at this. I swear, I'm a professional YouTube maker. I'm not professional, by the way. There it is. Okay, Codex of Frailty. Now it is up. Price is up. 320. That's nice. But you'll note the sales volume is incredibly low in general, right? So we have one in March for 323, and you'll note this is lower than the previous sale at 324. In fact, it's pretty much been, oh, okay, we did get a bit of a spike. It's been on a general downward trend for a while. And if we think about it, this makes sense, right? It's a valuable, powerful card. It's very useful. It's pretty, obviously. But this is a meta-driven thing. As this deck becomes less and less dominant, these decks become less and less dominant in the meta, the drive for these cards goes down. Totally reasonable, totally fine. Players market. And then ultimately what we can look forward to is the LL. Now, granted, this has some resistance to LL because it's Assassin and Ranger, and we have multiple Assassins and Rangers, right? But that said, as LLs happen, this value will get struck. It will be cut down, and it will be reduced over time. So it's worth noting that things like this are in place for a lot of these. I mean, most of them are in a downward trend. A few exceptions are things like this Angel, where we get the hype and it comes. We get the hype and it comes up, but now it's on a downward trend unless meta changes, right? And then LL is the inevitable kind of cut to the value. There's a few exceptions, right? Obviously, Crown of Dominion always going up. That is until the next generic headpiece. Now, if they want to keep this in there and they don't do reprints or new power level sort of thing, we're going to see something like that. But generally speaking, these collectible cards, beautiful, gorgeous collectible art cards, are on a downward trend with the long-term expectation of a continued downward trend until we reach the mythical, when this game is 10 years old, 15 years old, whatever. At that point, if collectors come back and in force, I will say, then yes, these will start to appreciate. But until then, the game mechanics and game finances of the game as it is basically lead towards a downward trend for most of these quote-unquote collectible pieces of Marvels, unfortunately. It's a real shame. If you've listened to me for a long time, you know I've collected almost every Marvel. It is definitely something I was always into and wanted to do until EVO. That really threw me off because they screwed that one up, which they admitted that the printer screwed it up and they didn't have time to change it. So point being that this was really where I liked to collect. This was the thing I cared about the most, and it still holds as a situation where it's better to just wait for a few years and then pick them up, because you'll get them a lot cheaper if you wait a few years, right? $14 Themai. And so that's the thing. Like, you have the ability to essentially just wait and get the collectibles at a much, much cheaper price, even cheaper if LL happens or something of that nature. But that's one of those things you do have to be aware of, that if you're trying to collect for the long term, if you're trying to collect art, trying to collect a binder, it's better to just wait until things LL are out of fashion, are old, not the most recent sets, obviously, because if you're buying anywhere close to the recent time frame, you're just expecting to see losses. And we're talking like up to 90% losses, right? So it's really worth taking that into account. That said, long-term collectability, obviously there. The beauty of this art is unmatched. The cold foil treatment is phenomenal and looks so good in a binder and in person. This is a reason I kept them on my shelf as we were cycling sets, and I was willing to pay the extra before because I was playing the game and it was very nostalgia building, right? Which is part of the whole concept for me. So here's where the big question comes. With Magic, we know over time the collectible pieces became more and more valuable because nostalgia kicked people back. Same with Pokemon, right? Oh, I remember when I was a kid, I had this card, blah, blah, blah. I've talked about this on here before. I've had several Magic cards from old school stuff that I've gotten and just talked about my memories of that growing up, formative memories, things like that. Are we going to get the same nostalgia build with Flesh and Blood in the era of massive number of card games, of massive competition from huge brands, think Lorcana, etc., and of continual fluctuation and on to the new thing, which is the internet age? Because remember, the Magic age, you didn't have as much internet. You didn't have online card shops. You didn't have any of this stuff. So you had to sit there and look through your cards and use your imagination, and that's what built the nostalgia for Magic, right? For this game, it's the wins, it's the tournaments, it's the events, the Pro Tour. I will never forget the Pro Tour. I have my my promo from it, I don't think I'll ever get rid of that, even if it goes to like a ridiculous price, because it has a strong emotional attachment to the trip with Tommy and me going down to Baltimore and doing all that stuff. Like, it was a good time. I was literally just talking about the other day about some fun things we did while we were down there, because it was such a good time, right? So that one is a personal, emotional connection, and that's what you want. And I think they're doing a great job of that with the tournaments, etc. But as far as the collectability goes, these cycle out too fast. I'm not sure that they will have as strong a connection as some of the critical cards for Magic, Brainstorm and things like that, that basically held in meta, because remember, they didn't have a standard cycle back then, for so long. And I think Magic's making the same mistake. They cycle so fast that there's no time to build nostalgia for a card. So I could be wrong on that, and some of the longer lasting heroes will obviously have a better runway in which to do nostalgia, but I don't know how many people are going to have nostalgia for Starvo, which cycled out in like 6 months, right? And so you do have this dynamic in the way the game is structured that kind of pushes against this long-term collectability, the long-term nostalgia kick, the long-term drive for those things. Now, collecting for the beauty of the art, absolutely, they nail it on that, right? But collecting from that kind of collector standpoint of, this will hold some value, this will maintain its value from what I buy it at, and it's a store of value, which is typically part of what collections are for. That's just a different dynamic in this game, unfortunately. And I think that will change over time as it outpaces, basically as those boxes disappear. When these boxes disappear, it will become a different story. We're just not there yet, right? And I think that's important to note. When these boxes start to disappear and literally are impossible to come by, that's when this story changes. So anyways, let's jump into some charts. We said Everfest, Outsiders, and Dusk Till Dawn. Everfest, hey, look at that. We kept it on the chart because, first edition, good. All right, so yeah, this is still just scattered movement sideways. There's nothing really to track here. It is somewhat on an upward, I guess they would call this, was this a bull flag? Where it's kind of flat at the top and moving on an upward trend. I think that is a factor, and we can keep an eye on it, but I think we're just seeing volatility generally in a sideways movement. There's no fidelity on these charts, so I don't know that we can trust anything like a flag, right? Outsiders, let's jump into that. Yeah, we're seeing massive volatility. Hard to track what's going to happen here. This is going to end up being noise, but it is on an uptrend, which is good. I do think we are seeing that. Will that last? This is a big question of 2.0. I think Outsiders is going to be our first true. Is this the check mark? Is this the supply constraint check mark? That would be pretty cool. I would be very happy to see that. So let's check this over the next few months. If this volatility settles out at a higher, plateau, and then it continues up, with these slow ticks up, then that will be fantastic sign for sealed collecting, because it means they got it right with 2.0, and that means we can just kind of ignore, I don't know, what the Monarch time frame as the equivalent of Fallen Empires and that sort of thing. They just, you overprinted. It was a reaction to the market. Crazy market times. It happens, right? Mistakes are made, especially when you're a young company. That's totally good. But if we see this doing a recovery check, which, by the way, the newer sets are holding up. They're not going below map, which means they're doing it right. So I have a lot of confidence and hope for this. I do think it's going to happen, but I let the data drive my decisions and thought process. I don't try to preempt it and presume that I know. So I'm gonna watch this data. If Outsiders as a box starts to see this continual upward, this check mark movement, then I'm going to be in a very happy place, because it will be reminiscent of old school Magic sealed collecting and what everyone was looking for in that dynamic. So very exciting stuff if it works out. So see Dusk Till Dawn. This is it's just a sideways channel. Nothing to report on this here. We did get our step up, and this is that going back to map situation, right? It is happening. Like, it is working. They are starting to pull it off. When will we get certainty on this? I don't know. I mean, even Evo being at 345 still is kind of crazy for a set that was essentially rejected by the market. And still, it's at 345. How did they pull that off? This limit on supply. It has to be, right? And again, it is. Oh, by the way, I meant to catch you guys up on this. I did not have confirmation until recently. It is available at distro again. I know it was gone for a while, but it is available again. So it is possible to get it at distro. That said, I think it's just very limited. I just don't think there's that much out there. So I hope it's not just people not, like shops not buying it, and it's more that there's just limited supply, in which case we have a strong support for an upward market trend and those quick check marks, which I'm hoping to see. So anyways, that's my thoughts for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Hit the like button, subscribe, and all those things. Until next time, crack those packs, play those games, and enjoy this hobby that we love. Have a good one.